Hey everyone, this is Athletes and Antiquities, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the resilience of the hobby and how to detect a bubble. So the main overarching point of this video is that a hobby needs an end consumer. And that seems like an obvious thing, like obviously someone needs to buy it, but a lot of people don't really think about that when they're buying something for the purpose of making money. So plenty of people, they're in the hobby to make money, which is okay, but someone has to be left with a bill at the end of the day. People such as myself, we buy cards and we grade them ourselves. But we grade to optimize them, but then we sell them back onto the market. I do keep, whenever I do a submission, usually maybe if I submit 50 cards, for example, maybe 10 of them are for a personal collection, and then 40 of them are to sell. And the reason why I do that is because I want to fund my collection as much as I can. But people overpay for graded cards because they don't realize how easy it is to do. So like when someone is paying that increased price due to, laziness or a lack of knowledge, it at some point it kind of has to change, or else people are going to keep on making money off of people's lack of knowledge in the hobby. If people become less lazy or increase their knowledge in the hobby, they'll start to do that arbitrage work that many of us operate in, and that would thus reduce that arbitrage potential. These are all PC cards, but in a submission that was with this Armaldo, it was about 40 cards, and 10 of them I kept, but those 40 I immediately flipped for very large margins for how little work and how little knowledge it took to make those decisions, to buy those cards, to inspect that condition, determine if it was profitable. And I'm gonna have a video coming out in a few weeks or so about how to really tell and what the math is to figure out what tier to grade a card at and stuff like that. But it does take some knowledge, but it takes less knowledge than a lot of people think. So so if everyone starts to operate more efficiently, prices of these graded cards will come down, and the end consumer will be able to get their same collection of cards for cheaper through grading themselves, or simply buying raw more intelligently, because not everyone has to grade. You don't have to grade to be a collector. I have some binders too, but even if you have that knowledge, you can still use that for raw cards and buy more intelligently. So this box right here, it's very hard to fit on screen, so sorry about that, but this is a PSA submission that I'm about to send out. I'm about to send it out tomorrow, and I plan every single card. This is one of the first submissions where every single card in that submission I plan to sell. The reason why I'm doing that is because I think the price of graded cards will start to come down, and so once grade prices do come down, I want to grade my PC cards. But for cards that I plan to sell, I want to just get that cash flow rolling ahead of time. So every single card in that submission I plan to sell, and it's all cards from ultra modern that people pull out of packs. I don't personally open packs, but I just buy singles online. I buy singles for a few dollars. I look at the PSA 9, PSA 10 prices, and I make sure that I can still profit off a 9, and then I shoot for a 10, and with those 10s, you're talking a card that's worth $10, you grade it for 15, and you sell it for 50. That's you just doubled your money. And stuff like that is not difficult to do, which is crazy. So this card submission I have here, it's all that stuff. It's all cards that are ultra modern, very easy to grade, that I'm just gonna churn into the market, and the market, I guarantee you, is just gonna eat it up for a very large profit margin. So this is why I think we're currently in a grading bubble, but it's much better than it was during COVID. I do want to emphasize that. During COVID, due to grading companies shutting down, due to restrictions and stuff like that, there were astronomical price discrepancies. People were selling raw cards that were worth $5 raw that you could readily find in good condition for over $100 in a PSA 10. And in some instances, it was far more than that. It was a much larger discrepancy. And that was insane. For someone that had graded cards at the time, it didn't take a genius to figure out that that was not sustainable. Many people online were saying, this is crazy, how is this even possible? But people were just eating it up because they couldn't grade themselves. And now that's obviously changed. Grading has opened up again. The floodgates have opened, and we're getting this tsunami of graded cards back, but the market is still gobbling up that tsunami more than I thought they would. And it's coming down, but yeah, like I said, that bubble is still very much there with that whole tsunami. And here's the main idea. The reason why I think the market is gobbling up that supply is a lot of people that are buying them are not end consumers. And this goes back to the first point I said, where a hobby needs end consumers. If speculators are selling to speculators, who are then turning around and selling to speculators, that is the sign of a bubble. If you're buying an item from a flipper and you intend to then flip that card to someone else down the line, that's part of the issue. That can only go so far before that end consumer walks away, because that card's price has surpassed the organic demand. Flippers can't just sell to flippers infinitely. There has to be someone at the end of the day that will say, yes, I want to pay that price, and they're left with the bill. Someone needs to be left with that bill, which is very crucial. And it might seem obvious, but a lot of people don't consider that. When they buy an ultra modern booster box that was, whatever, $80 on release, and they're buying it for $300, are you buying it for $300 because you would open that box at $300, or you would be an end consumer of that box at $300? With some people, yes, and that's okay. But I guarantee with a lot of people, they're buying that booster box for $300 because they're assuming that in 10 years, someone else will want that booster box for $1,000. And that may be true, but we don't know, and that's the gamble. You are just assuming that there is an end consumer out there that will pay exorbitantly more than you did. And people look at vintage booster boxes, they look at WotC, they look at EXR, they look at Diamond and Pearl, they say, oh my god, these booster boxes from 15 years ago are selling for thousands of dollars. That's an insane return on your investment. That's ludicrous. So if I do this now, maybe I can get a portion of that down the line. And I'm not saying there's no profit to be had there, but too many people are just assuming that an end consumer will pay more than them. They're buying that booster box from a flipper who bought it for a little bit less, and maybe they're selling to another flipper who down the line is going to buy that and then say, oh, maybe in a year or so I'll sell it again, and that cycle just keeps on going. But eventually it has to stop. It can't go on forever, or else the market is far more irrational than I could have imagined. But when organic demand is passed, in my opinion, the object is teetering over the edge. Like I said, like what happened with those graded cards, when flippers were selling the flippers and eventually that consumer walked away because that card's price had surpassed the organic demand, that's when you saw that crash towards the end of COVID, when everything just tanked in value. That organic demand was passed by speculation, and then that object was teetering over an edge, and eventually it fell. But the problem is, when an item is teetering over an edge like that, you don't know how far the fall is from that edge. Pokemon is still very healthy right now. I know this isn't some doom and gloom video. Like, it's still one of the strongest hobbies I've ever seen. There's so much demand. There's so much organic demand. There are so many end consumers who are paying those prices because they love those items, whether it's an Evolving Skies booster box, whether it's a Scream Eevee, whether it's a Shining Imukuni, because I'm an end consumer for both of those at the price I paid. And there's still so much organic demand, so this isn't meant to scare anybody, but it's just to make people think when they're buying something with the intention of profiting in the future. Do you, how realistic is it that an end consumer will pay more than you are? Because for some things, there are a lot of things in the hobby that I think you can make a very strong case for that in 5 years it will be worth much more than it is today. And for some, I'm buying some of those things. But there's a lot of things I see, particularly ultra modern PSA 10s, and it kind of scares me when people say that, because they're buying an ultra modern PSA 10 that I graded net total for $25, and they're buying it for $100, $70, whatever it may be, $70, $80, with the assumption that, oh, in 5 years maybe I can sell it for $200. So that was pretty much the entire spiel of this video. That was my entire rant. What do you guys think about that? Do you how much do you consider the end consumer when you're buying an item to speculate on, or do you even speculate to begin with? What kind of items are you do you feel safe speculating on? What things do you think the hobby might be overly hyped about, or caught in some sort of I don't know what other word to use it besides bubble. I know bubble is kind of thrown around a lot, but are there items in the hobby that you think people are putting way too much stock into in terms of how it will be seen down the line? Love to hear your thoughts about it, but yeah, it's all for today. Thanks. Bye.